What rope system is your team using? Dedicated main, dedicated belay, single main, single belay, dual main, mirrored system, twin tensioned rope system, dual capability two tensioned rope system? The heck is the difference between all these systems anyhow? I started making these videos because there is a lot of confusion and debate in the rope rescue world over systems. We pretty much all agree that we should be using two ropes in high angle rescue, but suggesting exactly how to use them is the kind of thing that nearly causes bar fights at ITERs. There are a lot of type A personalities and a lot of strong egos in rope rescue, layered on top of performing low frequency, high consequence, highly technical, time-sensitive operations in a wide range of environments. Structure, cave, confined space, mountains, swift water. It's no surprise that there are some strong differences of opinion. My goal here is to clear up some terminology and provide a foundation of understanding for those systems, not to advocate specifically for one over another. I do have preferences which I will share, but those are colored by my own experience in a very specialized niche of rope rescue, that is lightweight mountain rescue techniques with a highly proficient team, and they may not apply to everyone who's watching this. So let's talk about each of these systems, starting with dedicated main, dedicated belay systems. For a long time, this was the unchallenged standard in technical rope rescue. One line held the load, reeved through some type of descent control device, a brake bar, a rescue aid, or similar, and a second untensioned belay line with a Tandem Prusik belay served as a backup in case there was a mainline failure. On a raise, the main line did the work while the belay was kept snug. The thinking was that an untensioned line would be more resistant to damage in the event of rockfall and would be adequate to hold the load in case of mainline failure. I understand this to have been more an article of faith than of science, and I don't know offhand of a situation where a DMDB system failed in the presence of perfect human operation. But the reality is that human operation is rarely perfect, and there have been incidents where DMDB systems failed, causing injury or worse. In 2010, firefighters in Phoenix, Arizona, created more than 400 mainline failures on DMDB systems as a part of their regular training. They found that with 12 feet of rope in service, 1 in 10 tests resulted in the load falling 10 feet or more. This was a rude awakening for rescuers who might have been hanging below the litter and kicked off an international review of the efficacy of DMDB systems. British Columbia has been a leader in mountain rescue systems research for many, many years, and around that time contracted with Kirk Mauthner to reassess their rescue systems. The Phoenix tests showed that DMDB systems could result in alarmingly lengthy stopping distances, and Mauthner's testing at the time showed unequivocally that an untensioned belay line offered no benefit over a tensioned line in terms of surviving a drop over a sharp edge. This began a sea change in rope rescue from DMDB systems towards dual main systems. Not everyone switched from DMDB to dual main. Rigging for rescue still leans toward using a tensioned main line and untensioned or hand-tight belay using a VT Prusik on the belay line for edge transitions, based largely on the opinion that approaching an edge on two tensioned lines is more challenging and likely to cause a slip at the edge, and that most of our edges are not sharp enough to warrant concern over rope failure. I'll talk more about that later. In terms of terminology, since either line can theoretically switch roles, some folks now call these single main, single belay, or SMSB systems, rather than dedicated main, dedicated belay. Regardless, the data supporting dual main systems was compelling enough that many fire departments and mountain rescue teams switched to some variation on using two tensioned lines in high-angle rescue. What Mauthner proposed, and what the British Columbia Council for Technical Rescue, or BCCTR, adopted as a standard, was called a dual capability two-tensioned rope system, or DCTTRS. The definition of a dual capability two-tensioned rope system is that each system is simultaneously capable and competent as both mainline function as well as backup function to the other line. A capable and competent mainline is further defined as being able to handle a working load of between 1 and 4 kilonewtons, with the idea that each rope in a DCTTRS system can take on the full load at any time without requiring a change in friction on the descent control device. A capable and competent backup is further defined as being able to pass the BCCTR 1 meter drop on 3 meters of 11 mil rope with a 200 kilogram mass, having no more than 12 kilonewton maximum rest force and no more than 1 meter stopping distance, and that the system must remain functional in that event. So the dual capability two-tensioned rope system is comprised of 2 separate descent control devices and progress capture devices, each on their own tensioned lines that join at the god ring on the litter. By sharing the load more or less evenly, each line is less likely to fail on contact with a sharp edge. This is another major rabbit hole, but I will comment briefly. There's plenty of testing that shows that when loaded above 4 kilonewtons, ropes part virtually on contact with a sharp edge. This is a result of what's called softening failure, which is essentially melting. As the first high tension strands are cut, they release heat energy and it melts through the adjacent strands and causes a chain reaction that causes the rope to fail. By keeping each rope roughly holding half of the tension, the force on each rope is halved, and so the ropes are more resistant to this type of failure. There is a bunch more info on this in the description. As I mentioned earlier, human operators are not perfect, and the dual capability two-tension system strives to reduce the risk of human error by having an independent operator on each rope, backed up in turn by a rope tailor who holds both strands in gloved hands and serve to keep the ropes feeding at the same rate, and back up the operators in the event that one or both froze while defeating the auto stop. Now, this is pretty reasonable when you consider that many rope rescue technicians are also rock climbers who react very frequently to falls by locking their hand down on the brake strand. Doing the same thing on the auto stop Prusik in a rope rescue situation without a rope tailor could theoretically cause their load to go to the ground. So that's a rundown on dual capability two-tensioned rope systems. More recently though, I'm seeing a lot of folks talking about twin-tensioned rope systems, or TTRS. What's really confusing here is that some folks are using that terminology incorrectly, while others are in fact running twin systems. So the Mauthner, British Columbia DCTTRS system is a two-tensioned rope system, where each rope is independently operated and simultaneously capable and competent, and may be configured identically or differently depending on the task at hand. It is not a twin or mirrored system. On a lower, both lines will be performing the same task, but on a raise, one might be configured in 3-to-1 and another in 9-to-1 to accomplish the haul with the most efficiency and least number of haulers, for example. Or one line might be fixed on a pre-built 5-to-1 and the other performing a standard lower for a panorama or rappel-based two-rescue or pickoff. Now, in a twin-tensioned rope system, sometimes also called a mirrored system, both lines are always doing the exact same thing. An example would be the double clutch system, where both lines run through their own clutch and a single operator handles the levers on both lines. In another system that I've trained on, both lines run through a single scarab and are controlled by the same operator. In both of these systems, the single operator can control the entire system and maintain exactly equal tension on both lines, which is good for our sharp edge performance. It also has the advantage of requiring fewer skilled operators to control the lower, but it dramatically increases the possibility of human error. So dual capability two-tension rope systems and twin tension systems are different types of dual main systems. Richard Delaney, the Australian technical rescue expert, commented that dual main systems are becoming more and more common in both rope access and rope rescue. Devices that can be positioned back to back and operated by a single technician facilitate much better equalization of tension. However, they are dependent on that single operator getting it all right. For this reason alone, dual main lowering systems should always have some form of backup in place. The simplest way to provide this backup is employing a second technician to act as a backup belayer, tailing both ropes directly. behind the primary technician. I couldn't agree more. Some modern descent control devices like the clutch have an anti-panic feature where the operator cannot, in theory, override the auto stop. However, in a component-based system using a simple descent control device like a Scarab or an ATC, having a single operator introduces what I think is an unacceptable level of potential for human error. I promised I'd come back to it. So, to tension or not to tension? Honestly, the debate between the continued use of DMDB, SMSB systems and dual main systems, either two-tensioned or twin-tension, seems to be mostly wrapped up in ego and organizational culture. Mike Gibbs of Rigging for Rescue wrote a 55-page paper entitled "To Tension or Not to Tension, Much Ado About 4 Meters," which basically says that he thinks it's harder to approach an edge on two-tension systems. Now, personally, I've used a variety of rope rescue systems in training and in real-life incidents, and I've had no difficulty approaching an edge under any of them, assuming the operators had a reasonably high skill level. So if you feel strongly about one or the other, great. You know your team, you know the terrain you operate in, and you know the equipment that you have, and now you know the history and pros and cons of each system. Choose wisely. That said, I promised I would also share my own personal opinions. If you can't tell by now, I've been most comfortable using a dual capability two-tension rope system for mountain rescue. On the other hand, I really like the concept of twin tension systems for very small teams, but I have huge safety concerns with entrusting the entire system to a single operator. On those grounds alone, I would personally avoid twin tension systems. I think a major argument against dual main systems, that is, that it is difficult to approach an edge, is pretty valid if the dual main system is poorly designed and difficult to operate, but that hasn't been my personal experience with most systems. And in my real-world experience, I haven't seen that single main systems offer any other benefit over dual main systems. And Gibbs himself even advocates for switching his single main single belay system over to a dual main system once the edge transition is complete. So personally, I lean towards a dual capability two-tensioned rope system, but as mentioned, my experience is limited to a very specific niche of technical rope rescue. So I recommend you do whatever makes sense for you, your team, the terrain you operate in, and the equipment that you're working with, but don't do so blindly because some really smart person told you to. If nothing else comes out of these videos, I hope it helps rope rescue technicians to think critically about the systems they're using and why. As always, links and citations are in the description. I'll look forward to your comments. Let's keep it civil. Thanks for watching. See you next time.